former chair. I gotta make sure I get.
Yeah, please say that.
Yeah, former chair for being here. And introductions, Dan, it's good to see you all, and it's good to see you as well. So thank you all for being here today, and let's go ahead and move to, since we can do the minutes, let's take a look at the minutes, which I'm trying to read through. Everything appears basically in order from what I can glean, especially relative to the numbers. So may I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
It's been moved and?
I'm going to abstain, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'll second the minutes. I will second that. It's been moved in second. All those who like to vote in affirmative, vote yes. Aye. Those abstentions?
Abstain.
And of course, those vote no. So that does move with appropriate votes, the minutes of the meeting. Now, next item, motion to approve minutes. We got that done. Requested action motion to recommend membership as follows for the remainder of the calendar year. Is that calendar year 2022 or is it 2023?
Yeah, good question. So typically, as you all know, it's the chair's responsibility to submit the slate. So this is kind of teeing up for the September board meeting. But at last month's meeting, we did talk about the current composition of the finance committee continuing at least through the end of this calendar year, 2022, so that we could keep continuity through the move.
Okay.
Certainly, if members are willing and interested to continue through the whole of the fiscal year in that term, I would be happy to update that.
Okay.
So it really would be, and then I just added Mrs. Page to the group because she was elected as the new treasurer.
Wonderful.
And Mr. Byerly, it has been customary that sometimes the treasurer is rolled off, sometimes they've stayed on, so I leave that to you as well. But without having heard anything from anyone that they would like to roll off sooner, my thought was that we could give the chair the information that you all are willing to serve again. But I know Mr. Peterson had raised not a concern, but just the reality that it probably for this committee in particular would be good to have some rotation of membership just to keep things fresh. So
Okay.
Okay. We don't normally have the committee kind of forward any kind of a formal recommendation, but I thought if you all wanted to discuss it further, then we can convey your opinions to the chair.
Okay, that's fine with me. No problem here. We appreciate Mr. Byerly. Appreciate your being here. I know you're vice chair, and vice chair. Thank you. Commission, so we appreciate your filling in double duty there in that regard today too. Yeah, that's fine. No problem at all. So we need a motion to do that. Make a motion. I'll move that we make the motion to recommend the stated membership to the commission as stated, as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and proper second. All those in favor, sign aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. That motion carries. Thank you much. Mr. Van Dorn, how you doing today? It's good to see you.
Doing well, how are you?
Okay, great. Financial results for 2022.
For the fiscal year 2022, pre-audit.
Okay.
So these are close to the numbers that we expect to be submitted for audit. Again, on a governmental fund basis, so more closely to a cash basis of accounting. But there will be some fine tuning to these numbers as we progress through the next month, and then through the audit itself. But I want to start with the first page of the financial report, which is the balance sheet, and highlight a number of elements that are going on there. You see the comparison of June 30, 2022 versus last year, June 30, 2021. And for most of the year, we've been noting that there's always been an increase in cash and decrease in accounts receivable. But for June 30, 2022, that trend changed. So we have a reduction in cash versus a year ago and an increase in receivables.
They're just due to the timing of thereof.
And due to a couple of significant elements. The Virginia Housing Grant is a much more significant part of 2022. You know, it did not even start in 2021. So there is about $400,000 in accounts receivable, about $580,000 in the accrued revenue That's part of the current year's ending number. So about $980,000 from that one grant that is bolstering the accounts receivable and the accrued revenue.
Accrued revenue, okay.
And the cash effect was we paid the subcontractors, the vendors, their quarter ended March 31 invoices, which was about $374,000 prior to receiving the reimbursement. But as of today, we received that grant reimbursement today. So otherwise, had we received that by the end of the fiscal year, we would be showing about a $300,000 increase in cash. So those are the dynamics behind the numbers that we're seeing, the decrease in cash and the increase in receivables. For the most part, the receivables are in good shape, with things being collected in a timely fashion. We have a couple of issues with VDEM grants where we're looking at them to on the method by which we assign indirect costs and fringe benefits. They don't recognize the methodology that we normally use for most of our grants. And so we're working with them to come up with a workable solution, where we still get paid, but they can fit it into their grant structure. And so there's about a risk of $50,000, but we expect most of that to be recouped, once we resubmit under the new method. So a few things going on there. You see accounts payable further down the page. Again, that $799,000 of that $630 is for this Virginia housing grant. To be paid to subcontractors. So,
Dan, we're holding payment of that fourth quarter draw until we get the money this time, as opposed to paying the vendors and waiting to be reimbursed. So we're just switching the order of things.
that's the normal pattern of things, is we would get reimbursed so that PlanRVA is held even on a cash basis. But the reason for paying the third quarter was just, getting the reimbursement from Virginia Housing was taking a while. And so being fair to the vendors, they had to pay their people as well. So it was a business decision to help bridge that gap for our partners as well.
Is it standard for them to wait so long to?
It was our first submittal, and so we expect it to be much smoother.
That's good.
There's a significant learning curve in the submission.
Sure,
Sure,
that's
I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, the way that they need to see it. And even though you're submitting to the state,
I guess that's
branch of the
actually
state
worse
is
sometimes.
VDOT likes to see things one way, VDEM another way. Everybody's a little bit different. So those are the highlights of the balance sheet.
Thanks for covering those accounts payable. That one jumps out at you too.
One of those significant numbers in there, but very explainable. Now moving over to the second page, the summary of the profit and loss. You see that June of 2022 was actually a loss of $72,000, whereas May was a surplus of $30,000. So why did we swing $100,000 in 1 month?
Wow, yeah, huge.
And yes, we have reasons for that as well. We had a kind of 3 significant expense items that occurred in July or in June. One of those was the pay time off payout for one of our long-term employees who retired as of June 30. And we made that payment as of June 30 as well with that payroll, so that the expense would be in the fiscal 22 period. And that was about $20,000. We also had more moving expenses that were incurred and paid during June for about $26,000. And then kind of a strange happening with our flexible spending accounts, the health savings plan. We actually had an expense come through for about $10,000, which is highly unusual. So between those 3 items, you have $56,000 in unexpected expenses or accelerated expense. The other dynamic is the one that we've been tracking for most of the year, where leave wages if you look at the detail statement, page 2.
Yeah.
Account 6101. You know, leave wages went up to 26,000. And that's expected for the month of June as people go on vacation. And so with that, we had a correlating reduction in revenue of about 45,000. And again, you can't really see that change between the 2 months and the numbers the way that they're presented because of some significant elements. Changes you can see on the first page, account 4130, the VDM pass-through grant. And then further down, the 4440 Regional Housing Production Grant, that's this Virginia Housing Grant. Those 2 elements were significantly higher.
That's 4430, you say?
4440.
4440, okay, regional, all right.
So that 957,000.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so that influences, you can't really look at that bottom line total income and understand that there was actually a productivity decline just by looking at it. But, you know, there is once you carve out those couple of numbers. And so for the fiscal year, we're looking at a surplus of $76,000.
Wow, that's good.
You know, we had a projection of about 135,000 when we did the budget, so that was a couple months old.
Okay.
Again, a couple of these, you know, exceptional expense items that were above and beyond what we expected, you know, is what brought those down. But they were incurred properly into and expensed properly into fiscal 22. And so with that, if you turn back to the balance sheet,
Okay.
we still have an unassigned fund balance of 1.4 million.
1.4 million, okay. So this year's income, 76, what was it last year? Do you remember? What was last year's income? And fund balance, that income for last year, I can't remember. We usually have a comparative, don't we? No, but not here.
Well, it's fiscal year
Well,
2023 year to date, so then,
76 this year.
yeah.
So last year was about 30, maybe, was it around 30 or something? Neighborhood.
Yeah, last year's was fairly significant.
It's higher.
So high,
And
okay.
I'm calling it up as we speak.
I tell you, overall, the good news, we continue to have a positive, that's really good compared to some prior years. I remember a couple of prior years.
Right. Yeah, fiscal 21,
Yeah,
we had excess of revenues over expenditures of 169,000.
wow, okay, all right. All right.
So
Anything unique there you want to comment on, Martha? What do you think?
just simply, where Dan mentioned that, you know, the fund balance, we're projecting that ends at 6:30, just a couple of reminders. The actuarial adjustments that happen due to the Virginia retirement system will likely change that number, correct?
It probably won't change to the 1.4 because
Okay,
that's only recorded on the other balance sheet.
that's true.
The second balance
That's
sheet.
true, yeah.
So if you remember, in the financial statement, you have 2 sets of statements, with the other statement being much more on more of an accrual basis. So you include things like retirement, you know, long-term expenses, long-term assets. And so that type of adjustment will occur on that statement. But for budget purposes and for more of our traditional conversation reporting, we go on the more traditional cash basis, you know, current resource basis of accounting, so the governmental fund. So this 1.4 will probably stay intact.
Okay.
And that's the number to which we compare the $1 million fund balance
The balance,
target.
yeah.
That's
So
correct.
we are contributing to and arriving at well above that policy. The board took action, as you know, on the 14th to approve the finance committee's recommendation to increase the contribution to the MOVE project by $40,000. So from that 1.4 million, we will, in this current fiscal year, plan to expend 290,000 associated with the MOVE. So just to kind of keep that in mind, Dan and I have been watching this closely because we want to make sure that we're positioning ourselves at this time next fiscal year to still be well above the $1 million target.
Okay, and that's a good point on that 1 million, because that's something we may want, we're gonna probably have to reevaluate based on the premise of what it was initially. This space, we have a new space, so we'll need to reevaluate based on that. I don't know what the recommendations will be yet, or how we should view that, but it's something we need to at least, I think, think about exactly and look at.
And
So I hope that we, sir, go
yeah,
ahead.
that very issue is actually on my work plan for this year.
Okay, so that's a
Right.
great idea.
Forward here.
Yeah, so
But thought we needed to finish with the fiscal year,
let's do this one
get
first.
into audit,
Yeah.
and then, take a look at kind of
Yeah,
what it means, let the budget settle down a little bit as well.
yeah, I think that's a great idea. Great
So
point.
probably in that second, third quarter, we'll be, putting forth some analysis to see maybe if we need to change that.
Change it,
rule,
how
that
we need to
guideline,
moderate
or
it,
what
yeah,
we might need to do with that.
absolutely,
So,
yeah,
excellent observation.
yeah, very excellent. All right, very good. That's great, Dan. Any other questions on the numbers at this point from anyone? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dan. Okay, how about the audit update? Anything there, Martha, that we need to be apprised of, everything proceeding as appropriately?
Dan, do you want to take that one? I think we've done the kickoff with Mr. Rhodes, and maybe you can brief us.
We did the
on where we
kickoff
are.
with Rhodes, and he has done some of his preliminary work. He did that remotely. We have submitted some information. He's doing test controls. That type of work. We'll probably schedule him for the final field work late August, early September,
Okay,
as we get all the information into, finalize the accounting close, especially with all the accrual elements and the retirement elements.
retirement and the RS and all that sort of thing. Okay,
So we expect to be able to have a successful audit completed and reported to this committee by October,
October, okay.
but hopefully we'll be finished with the lion's share of the work in that earlier September timeframe.
All right, sounds good. Okay, great. All right, good deal on that. How about financial management system update? It's item C, haven't seen that in a little while.
Yeah.
It's, I like
Your
it.
favorites.
Okay, yes, it's always in the back of my mind. Where we're moving with
We're
that.
making some progress. We're still in the old system of QuickBooks for the primary accounting system.
Okay,
But we are implementing a new timekeeping system through Paychex, which will be a repository for time. We've already transferred the payroll element of it. But as far as tracking all employee time and project time, we're implementing that this month, next month. And there's some functionality with that system that may allow us to do some better analysis of our time and actually better control some of the project accounting and how staff actually assign their time, strategically, help us manage the grants more strategically. Probably the biggest benefit is that we're going away from the legacy system, which is an access database, which is served well and long. And when you say that about accounting systems, that usually means that there's some questions arising. And, we're seeing, Diane has to go through it every single pay period, just making sure that the database gets reset, make sure that everything's fine. It's, a little bit, lumbersome to work. And the Paychex system is a good solid system. So we're in process on doing that. And then there's a natural integration straight into QuickBooks. So there's no rekeying of data. There should be just a transfer of data that works there. So getting more stable and getting the seams to come together rather than having these very distinct pockets of information. So we are making progress with that.
okay, great. How's the new auditors? Have you had any conversation with them, our auditors rather, regarding that? Where are they apprised in terms of that?
I personally have not apprised them of that change because it's a new fiscal year,
It's a
but
new
that will
year.
be part of the discussion.
When we do start wrap up this year's audit, we'll certainly engage them to think about that.
Exactly,
Because
yes.
I think we are continuing to them in
Yes.
the next couple of years or so, especially as we get ready to move to our new space as well.
Right. In the fiscal 21 audit, that was a significant element of discussion is
Yeah.
how do we keep track of time?
Right.
How do we control changes? How do we control that information system?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was part of the conversations as to why we wanted to make the change as well.
Okay.
Is just to be able to make sure that those control risks are properly controlled, properly mitigated. So he has been involved in that discussion. And he has brought it up. So
Okay, good.
I expect when he does,
Okay.
more field work, we'll be able to further that conversation and tell him specifically what we're doing.
Well, great. Just want to make sure they're apprised, at least as we journey down that pathway. But there's no doubt it's going to be a significant improvement there. That's great. That's great to hear. All right. Good. Any comments or questions on the new system? Martha, you want to say?
I just wanted to offer some kudos. Diane did a ton of research
I bet
to
she
be
did.
able to arrive at this, and I think was able to bring Dan in late in the spring. And so this was a transition that has been coming through consultation with the auditor, as Dan said, but then also researching different platforms and that kind of thing. So Diane, thank you for your work on that.
Oh, yeah. I appreciate it.
And it comes on the heels of her leading a different transition earlier in the year. She led the transition to be able to onboard everybody into a new HR management system. So I think we've talked about this before, but I think it bears repeating. Everybody on staff now has access to their employee file digitally, which is kind of just nice in this day and age. But we also are able to manage our recruitment process and applications and collaboration to review applications, and then the communication is much more streamlined, and then actual taking that to onboarding. So we don't make hires all the time, so I think we're still kind of learning all the functionality, but we've gotten feedback from the people that we have hired that it's a clean system that works well, and so it's just a big part of those behind the scene things that happen to make things more efficient and run better. And so thank you for what you have done, because you've made all of that possible. So,
Thank you for everything,
Thank
Diane.
you.
course.
Thank you for everything, Diane. You've been tremendous in this. And to say a lot more in that area, but we appreciate it nevertheless.
I have to say, Mr. Chairman, I'm glad to hear that Microsoft Access is still being used somewhere. It used to be one of my favorite programs. I was really disappointed when they got rid of it.
I actually didn't believe that it was still part of the suite when we talked about
Oh, yeah, I
using
love it. It was so good for managing data and a couple of jobs I worked. And anyway,
We do, Access is alive and well with PlanRVA. We do actually manage a lot of the TIP, the Transportation
okay, and
Improvement
through
Program,
Access, yeah.
as well as all the environmental reviews and some things like that. So it is as a program, it's not been retired from our agency, just using it differently for timekeeping. But
I love it.
we have staff members that their hearts are warm right now because of what you just said.
Hey, pass it on.
Oh, wonderful. Well, great to hear. Great to hear. Good thing. Good thing. That's great to hear. Thank you all. Appreciate that.
Great.
All right, Martha, new space. and
Well, we
relocation.
have been
updates.
busy since the 14th when the board met. The workstations are on order.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
we've finished the process, the creative process, to be able to pick all of the fancy finishes and colors. And I know Janice has been a part of that with Sid and a number of other staff members. And if you do walk down our hall, you can see Lee's put up a really nice display board where everybody can kind of see the mock-ups.
Oh, good.
So,
Okay. Where's that, over here?
just down the hall and just past the.
Did y'all
lobby.
pick light colors or dark colors?
So the table finishes, if I'm not mistaken, are gonna be kind of like a lighter color laminate, almost like a white gray. If I'm thinking correctly, the outside has like kind of a light wood grain.
I'm not sure, I know that for the board tables that we're now gonna put off till
yeah.
later, those are gonna be white,
But
but I
for the
didn't hear the
workstations-
results of the workstation.
So for the workstations,
It wasn't
yeah,
white, okay.
every workstation has kind of like a tower caddy, so it pulls out kind of like where you can hang your coat or that kind of a thing. That's gonna be like a light green wood, and then kind of a corresponding matching for the wood finishes on the exterior of the cube connectors. And then there's a pull-out kind of like sit stool type thing that has a cabinet underneath of it, and that will have a blue not quite that blueprint blue, but fairly coordinating color, maybe about this color of your shirt. Cushion on the top, and then the chairs are gonna also have just a slightly different color blue back, and then we have red lamps, so kind of corresponding to our brand colors and matching things there, so looks nice, I think, from the drawings. So that's on order. Believe it or not, those items are gonna hopefully be right on schedule. They're gonna be monitoring the construction schedule very closely to make sure that we can kind of time delivery, and Creative holds delivered furniture for, if I'm not mistaken, 2 weeks after the last piece is delivered for a no charge. So we're hoping to keep that going, and our team there are working to make sure that coordinating delivery so that we maximize that free of charge storage. We are in the final stages of construction contract review. Legal got back to me yesterday. Mr. Hefty and Mr. Gregory were able to take a look at the contract, and they both came back with the same recommendation with regard to the indemnification clause, which I'm sure most of you guys are all familiar that is the area where most local governments always want to kind of massage that language. So we'll be kicking that back over to Urban Corps for review, and they laid out a good strategy for how to deal with that particular clause. But otherwise, both project management, architecture, and legal have all signed off on the agreement, so I hope that we'll have that executed by the end of the week. And we did have a kickoff call yesterday. A number of us were on that call to meet the team from Urban Corps, to introduce them to our team with Creative on the furniture side and coordination, to introduce them to our IT vendor and our wiring and cable vendor and our audiovisual vendor. So everybody's now met, and they understand that they need to be coordinating together under the leadership of Tallheimer to make sure that everything syncs up the way that it should. So it was a great meeting. Didn't really have that much to kind of work through. It feels like it's a pretty straightforward project. I think by the end of this week, beginning of next, we'll be able to have the review, comments back, response to the city's comments on the permit reviews. And so some of the subs and trades have already submitted their permits. The city does things in buckets of the trade areas, so those permits are in process, and we're just waiting, I think, on one more number with regard to the value engineering that we've incorporated, but it's all seems to be running pretty smoothly. So everybody's been doing what they should and been very prompt and responsive, so it's been going well. I think by the next time we meet, we might be able to coordinate some kind of maybe on-site tour. Safety is going to be the kind of paramount priority, and they are clicking through this pretty quickly. So, we'll take that in stride, but we are talking about having some project status meetings over at the site in one of the meeting rooms there, and then being able to take a walk through upstairs. So I'll keep you guys updated on that, and we'll make sure that we've got the safety equipment that everybody needs to walk through the space. And we've got a moving call scheduled for tomorrow to talk through the 3 bids that we have for moving. So we've got 3 vendors who have visited the space, taken a look at our inventory, and have offered us proposals. And then the owners have been very good to work with regard to storage. So they have offered storage on the 2nd floor. They just need to kind of work through with us the details of security and insurance and that kind of thing. And we are, I will say, planning not to store our electronic equipment there. We think things like this will be fine and safe and secure and everything, but we are going to ask our IT vendors to keep hold of the electronic equipment that gets decommissioned here until it gets installed over there. So kind of working through the sequencing of that. But otherwise, no real changes to the project schedule. I think once we get through permitting, the goal will be to accelerate it as much as possible so that we can get in on time. And I was telling Mr. Winslow before the meeting, the contractor is well aware of our move out date. So they do understand that we're trying to minimize to the extent possible, and maybe totally, if that is doable, the gap between move out and move in. Any questions?
When is the permit date? When are you expecting that to be completed?
I think the project schedule calls for it mid-August. The 12th sticks out in my head, but I need to go back and refer to that to make sure. So we're on schedule as far as the commenting. I think that there were just a couple of clarifying questions that were not complicated for architecture to review. And then we just had a couple of changes to the mechanical and electrical because we were able to scale down that dedicated AC to the fan blower. So if anything, that should make that part of the review easier. And so I will be working with our contacts in the city permitting department beginning of next week to make sure that they know things have been submitted back in and
Good.
tracking that through the permit tracking system.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. That leads nicely into other items and discussion on meetings, first and second quarter. As you
So,
mentioned, discussion of meeting schedules and what we need to do in terms of keeping the move on schedule.
so with your concurrence, I think Dan is poised to be able to spearhead the quarterly meetings, regular quarterly meetings of the finance committee to coincide with the close of the quarter. So the next scheduled regular meeting of the committee would be in the month of October to review the audit report, as you said, the September 30th financials, and any recommended adjustments that we have to the budget at that time based on that year closeout and carryover and everything. I do think that it would be beneficial for us to have meetings in between those quarterly regular meetings to keep progress on the project site. So I was thinking, depending on what happens over the next week or so, giving you all options for the latter part of August or the beginning of September.
Okay,
For a meeting to be able to do a progress update on the move project.
move, yeah.
And we can, if it's okay with you, we can send out a poll to check your calendars and see what among the options work best.
Yeah, that would be good. I think that would be great.
And then, of course, we do have the weekly progress meetings. So you're welcome to tune into those. They're largely uneventful, but you can participate anytime.
Okay, very good.
So that's what we were thinking, if that's okay. We would
That seems
continue with kind of
reasonable.
that more regular meeting
Yeah,
through
seems reasonable.
through November at least. And I guess the other update I should have mentioned to you, Janice did go to visit the team at the convention center to look into options for meeting there. I think we're still waiting for the proposal from Mike, so
Yes.
I think I need to ping him, but they were very agreeable to offering us. I'll say the one caveat, the concern I think that we have is, as you know, the convention center has a great space, but they also have an AV tech vendor that Jack is not able to waive the cost for. So it is an expensive location as far as our audio visual needs. So we're taking that into consideration. I do know that Mr. Carroll has already lined up alternative location for the CVTA meetings, if I'm not mistaken, in November. It's just at the end of November, I think, is only October and November, I guess.
Okay.
And then we've been working with Mr. Lumpkin to identify space in Goochland for the TPO meetings. We thought we had a good location with Capital One, but they're still under restriction due to COVID. So they couldn't commit to letting us use that space, but they have indicated that they would very much like to partner with us in the future. So that's open. So I think we're pursuing CarMax and maybe one other site in the county, working with county staff on that. And then I'll be working with Mr. Davis to see if he wants to do something similar in Hanover area for the PDC. So we've got a number of different options and are on top of that as far as alternative meeting locations go for that period of time.
Yeah, Mr. Pearson, we just bring you in, we're just talking about meetings for relocation and meeting locations in Goochland and other areas, other ideas, and I think the issue with the AV and the convention center poses an issue, a cost that we'll be cognizant of. So, but anyway, yeah, I think that's very important to narrow down, very important.
I
Appreciate you.
apologize for
Appreciate
being
you.
late.
No problem.
My watch says I'm 5 minutes early, but my
no.
watch quit.
Oh, my goodness.
But I was,
Oh, my word.
Gosh.
10 minutes ago, I realized, I looked at the watch in the clock in my car, and I said,
Yeah.
they don't
That ain't
match.
right.
I heard you.
Somebody's wrong here.
Yeah, and it says, one on my arm is wrong.
Yeah, no problem. Nevertheless, I'm glad you could make it though. Yeah, any questions or concerns you have? We just went over the financials and you got a pack of everything there. Martha's
You guys are
updating
sharp
the
enough
move
to
and
know.
everything. And we're looking at tentatively meeting again, as Martha mentioned earlier, I think in August, September in area. to sort of keep us on the move schedule, calendar, moving forward, which is very, very important, which helps the cause. So any other ideas you think, Martha, that, so you think that in terms of where we can move and what we can do, any other ideas, I think with CBTA?
Yeah, I mean,
PO.
you know, for short-term locations, I mean, there's a lot of different options that we have. I think just
Yeah.
balancing the tech needs and the parking.
Okay.
But we have a lot of community partners that have offered space to us, so it's just a matter of making sure that it fits for the groups. So, but yeah, I think we'll be in good shape and not burdening any one organization with too many meeting requests. So, and it may be that we'll be able to do something at the convention center, but I'm a little bit concerned that having all of the meetings there could be prohibitive cost-wise.
Okay,
So,
okay.
but yeah, otherwise, everybody's really great to work with. I will say the one thing that I think is kind of next on the slate, and also kudos to our staff for this, we have been here for a long time, so we are working through the inevitable necessary purge. So there are things that we will be getting rid of, and so we'll be working through that process. Most of our assets are beyond their recorded usable life, so that aspect of it makes it easy, but finding a location, for example, for all of these maroon chairs and some things like that. So if you do know anybody that's interested in certain types of office furniture, please let us know, because we will be this late summer and fall working on that disposition plan, and we would probably prefer not to have to pay somebody to take it away.
Okay.
So that's kind of the next to do on this front, is just kind of get our furniture, and we have a storage room that has quite a bit of material that does not need to be maintained in our records anymore.
Is this part of the new furniture that's here in here now, or?
We've had these for a couple of years. These tables will go with us to the new space.
Okay, because we hadn't had them in here before.
Yeah, a little different, right? Yeah, how about record management, file cabinets and things of that nature, and the paper records? Any concerns there? I know over 10 years of been here, that's a lot of paper. I know you have a record management policy too, that you have to adhere to.
Do you want to say anything about that, or do you want me to?
Well, what's going on in that area?
You've identified, I think.
Well, we are
20 boxes.
following the records retention schedule from
Right.
Virginia. Yeah. So I guess it's been a couple of weeks ago when we started going through the storage room, we were following that schedule as far as identifying some boxes of things that could be destroyed.
Okay,
So,
good.
and we're looking into contracting with a company that does shredding,
Okay,
and then they use the shredded paper for recycling purposes and repurpose the shredded material to something else. So we looked for the most cost-effective vendor for that service, but we have already identified many boxes of items that we can have destroyed.
Okay.
Files that go back to the 90s and things that we just don't need to keep any longer.
great.
And I think going forward, so two things. We do have a dedicated file area in the new space, but also we just don't produce the same volume of paper records that we used to. So I think we've got a little bit more of a sophisticated digital record keeping system. The one other head scratcher is you may be aware that we do have, I think dating back to the TPO and the PDC's inception, hard copy records of the meeting minutes. Sometime in the 2010s, we stopped maintaining those in hard copy, so they end at a certain period of time, but we do have from the beginning to then in binders, and so we're trying to figure out when and how we will go about digitizing those, because it's a lot of just physical space that they take up. So that will either get accomplished before we move, or the binders will be boxed and maintained in kind of a more concise storage area until we have a digitizing plan. But that's those are the two things I feel like are on my not super excited about to-do list
Yeah,
with this
sure.
process.
I'm sure,
So,
okay. All right, great. Yes,
Did you
please.
have, I don't know if you've already discussed this or not, but I know we were talking about the folks at the current, talking about the current, allowing us to use some of their undeveloped space for storage, or is that
yes,
proceeding?
yes, they have approved that we can use the second floor. So that we're just working through the details with our insurance carrier to make sure that we have a plan for security and
Okay, so we're not gonna have to go out and find some place to.
yeah, I did
store
share with the
stuff.
committee, we are planning though not to store our AV equipment there. So when the speakers and this equipment gets decommissioned, we don't wanna just put that on the open floor on the second floor. So that will, those items, a relatively small inventory, but those items we are gonna need to store, and we're talking with Productive, that vendor, to make sure that they can keep custody of that, just so that nothing gets broken or damaged or lost. So similarly, these monitors.
That's good news.
Yeah, it is great. Now, you had mentioned something about a workstation out there you hand out here. Brian.
Yeah,
You
so
want-
I can walk
Mr.
y'all
Pitt,
down.
Yeah, walk us down.
Yeah,
Let's see
okay,
that.
great.
Let's get ready to adjourn this meeting. Let's
Okay.
walk down and look at that. When we do that, let's adjourn. So we'll move that we adjourn at this point. Then we'll walk down, take a look at that, and I think we'll be done, right, Mark? Anything else need to be discussed or shared?
That's
Yeah,
the most
y'all okay?
efficient meeting I've ever been to.
Don't you love it? Don't you just love it? Hopefully, it'll only get better. Thank you. All right, if we can do that, that'd be great, Mark.
Okay, great. Follow me.
Well done.
We need to stop the YouTube feed.
Yeah, I think Gilbert can stop it, but I can take care of the stuff. I think, but no, I don't sit stuff, he'll come back and do that. I think Gilbert stops
Oh, okay. Well, I don't see that she's signed on any longer, so,
oh, maybe I do have to do it from here, I don't know.
I mean, there's probably not anyone watching.
No, see, all I can do is leave. Can't